What up, nation? CK. Hit me up on Twitter at CK_013. Week 4. Week 4, we are on to week 4 already, just like that. Week 3 didn't go so well for me, just like weeks 1 and 2. But this one's a little wild. We got some clear chalk, particularly at the running back position. And we've got like one obvious game and some stud quarterbacks that are starting to separate. We're starting to see which quarterbacks are really taking that leap. It looks like Jalen Hurts and that offense are really taking a leap in the Eagles. Teams that were still waiting to take the leap, teams like the Cardinals, right? We kind of are waiting, anticipating them taking that leap. They haven't done it yet. But anyway, we got a pretty good one to discuss, man. Like I said, there's all kinds of we got plenty of chalk. There's actually plenty of value, and there's still more injury news on the way, so we could end up with even more value. So it should be a fun one, man. So we'll go ahead and get into it. You got your obvious stuff, right? Like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. It's hard not to like this game. Like, I mean, you feel like you just need something from this game. Now the Buffalo is coming off of a very tough game against Miami, very physical game. But Baltimore's defense has just been so suspect. I mean, they did all right against the Jets, but Joe Flacco, it's not saying too much. Everybody's been doing all right against the Jets except the Browns. But, yeah, so we saw what the Patriots did, even without their main receiver. Forgot his name. They were able to get it done. The Dolphins, they were home against the Dolphins. The Dolphins were down by, what was it, 2 touchdowns, came back and won it. The defense was suspect. So Josh Allen, to me, gets a little bit of the edge. Now, Lamar Jackson has put up more actual raw points and, like, for ceiling so far this year, but Allen is this team's entire offense. It seems like even when running backs score through the touchdown scoring, he's got something to do with it in some way and get some fantasy points off it. Nightmare, what's happening, bro? Been grinding, man. You know, still doing dirties at WiseTake.com. Me, anyway. What's up, bro? But yeah, Josh Allen seems like the clear number 1 QB. And my article is going to be the same thing. He's the clear QB1. And with that said, Lamar Jackson is the clear QB2. The ceiling's been crazy. Look at Miami. 48 in Draftkings points against Miami. 2 straight games where he ran over 100 yards. Now the Bills, the difference, this will be the best defense I think that Lamar will have seen thus far. And he is at home. He's catching them at a good time. Their secondary was really banged up last week. So this is like the right time to catch this team. So don't get me wrong. I'm not even saying that I'll have more Allen teams than Lamar. I mean, it's a clear 1-2. Only reason I go with, I mean, I guess they're literally the same type of play. I just got more faith in Josh Allen's arm, which to me, because he can run also, I feel like this is more flexible. But I mean, 1A, 1B, you can call it that if you don't want to call it 1-2. I mean, it's tough. They're expensive, but there's value, and there's ways to make it work out there. Maybe not with everybody you want in one team. Maybe you can't go Andrews and Diggs in every team, but between Gabriel, McKenzie on the Bills side, and then Bateman on the Ravens side, Duvernay, you can make things work and get exposure to them. So even if you're not playing these quarterbacks, you can still find a way to get exposure to the game. Jalen Hurts against Jacksonville. Hurts has been he's been doing it, man. Like, his price is a little high for the ceiling. Like, he's so close to those guys. His matchup is solid against Jacksonville. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, though. Hurts obviously a fine play. He'll be up there. Kyler Murray is an interesting spot. Look at the volume, bro. I mean, this team does not look good at all. Playing Carolina, whose defense looks pretty good. I think Kyler Murray will be really low owned. He's not running the same way those guys are, but he's taking a lot of pass attempts. Now, it sucks, and I think what AJ Green is out. But Rondale Moore is expected to be back, I think. In what capacity? Tough to say, but I mean, AJ Green's out, so there's those snaps. But I think Kyler Murray, in all seriousness, is kind of interesting. Just for the sake of ownership, you got Zach Ertz, who has been getting a lot of targets. You got guys you compare him with. Marquise Brown, obviously. But I think of these guys, he's like the forgotten one, right? And then you have a little drop-off with these other dudes. I think that the cheaper quarterbacks are kind of interesting. There's obviously Aaron Rodgers against the Patriots. Patriots defense is terrible. Problem is, I can just kind of see this game going real slow because it seems like Rodgers knows his offense is not as good this year. You don't have the weapons, so he's, doesn't seem to be putting his foot on the gas pedal as much. This team, like, they'll just kind of, just like when you play Madden for money, dudes just kind of try to kill the clock, wear the game down. And Mac Jones is out, so I think it's Brian Hoyer. We'll see. Mac Jones been looking pretty good, man. After that, like I said, it's cheap guys that I think are interesting. That Seattle game, man, it's got one of the highest totals out there. Jared Goff is now missing DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I think that's a boost for Hawkinson. We'll talk about it at tight end. But I mean, yeah, he's an option. He's at home against Seattle. Defense suspect over there. There's T-Law you can consider. The volume has been all right. I'm just a little more concerned with ceiling. He's on the road. Mariota's going to get some love, man. And, like, he's trying to run. He had one game. I guess maybe I don't know. I just don't see where I'm playing Mariota. The stack is there. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, double stack all day. Cleveland's defense is not good from what we've seen. So that might be something I might have to come around on. I don't think he makes my top 5, though, of guys that I'm going to end up playing. I don't think I'll end up with him. But we'll see. This shit could change, man. I update the article Sunday morning. Waking up feeling something different. There's some news out there. There's just not a lot of separation. You can go super cheap with Danny Jones. He's missing Sterling Shepard, so he got a ton of value you can stack him with. You can even play him with Saquon if you wanted to, and the prices of him and his teammates will get you that. But all in all, you can take shots on these cheap guys. But the Josh Allen, again, getting back to the top, man, it just seems like a slate where I expect a lot of people to try to pay up a quarterback this week. And rightfully so, especially with all the value that's out there. Running back, what that means for running back is I think Taylor, McCaffrey, Henry, Barkley, a lot of these guys are going to end up maybe lower owned than they should be for their upside. McCaffrey, I'd probably only use in bringbacks for Kyler Murray stacks or whatever. But Taylor and Henry are legitimate options. Henry, I always like more on FanDuel. Taylor, though, you could argue the same for him, but I think Taylor is just a little more like involved in the pass game regularly. Like they will get him the ball. But all these guys, Nick Chubb, and the reason for that is because we already know Jamal. I did the same thing. Fuck. Where's this guy at? Jamal Williams is gonna end up being chalky as hell, right? Mariota, yes, exactly. Jamal Williams expected to get the start, just smashed last time out against Minnesota. 20 carries when DeAndre Swift got hurt, a couple targets. So we're thinking he's gonna pick up kind of where they left off. Hard to argue against that kind of chalk. I'm going to just put him to the side. And then, of course, David Montgomery's out. We're talking about two of these players that just smashed, bro. And Khalil Herbert. And I like Khalil Herbert anyway. I always just look for a reason to play Khalil Herbert. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to argue against the Giants, too. Only problem is Bears' defense is bad. Their offense is bad. So you just wonder about, like, if the Giants are actually able to put up points. This end up in a trailing game script, which kind of messes up the whole thing, which is a possibility. But because of those two guys, these high-end, expensive guys are going to be lower owned than they maybe should be, like I said, for the given matchups. I think Saquon is probably the most interesting to me, not from a volume perspective even, but just from an efficiency perspective, man. He looks good. He's at home, and the Bears' defense, I'm just not sold on him. On the flip side, we talked about Mariota. That game is another one with a rise in total, one of the highest totals on the board. So if that's the case, you look at the Browns offense, who's going to do it? And it just seems like it's got to be Chubb, right? Double digits in every game so far. Just efficient. 6.4 yards per carry, 5.1 yards per carry, 4.9 yards per carry. He's getting it done. Didn't get a touchdown against Carolina, but still went for 18. 3 touchdowns against the Jets. Got a touchdown against Pitt. He's just another one, bro. Like if you are playing Mariota, you gotta play Chubb, right? Right? Coming down the list, the Eagles, man, they've always been a pass funnel defense over the years. But this year, according to DVOA, it's a little early to be relying on DVOA completely. But according to DVOA, they're actually ranked pretty far back against the run. The problem is you got James Robinson and Travis Etienne. You're just not sure who exactly is gonna, do it. Aaron Jones is a nice little correlation play. Again, you got AJ Green kind of lurking, but Aaron Jones, you feel like pretty good spot for him at home against a bad defense in New England, who is going to be playing with their backup quarterback. I think that's kind of an interesting spot. James Conner at 6'3". Coaches say they want to get him more involved. I guess we'll see. We've heard that before, but we'll have to wait and see. But obviously, like, there's no one here that's really like dragging you away from Williams and Herbert. So you could imagine how popular these guys are going to be, and that's okay. Like just because plays are popular doesn't mean you can't play them. It just means you have to get a little different around them. But anyway, more of the reason I think that we'll see people paying up for quarterback this week. Wide receivers. So Diggs, right? He's the obvious one, which is funny because it's just because of the game and because of Allen. Now, granted, against Tennessee, 47, we know he's got that kind of ceiling. But these guys like Devontae Adams and I'm gonna Rob Brown. It's pretty much them too. So you figure. Point being, I don't think anyone's gonna play Adams. He's a pivot just to pivot though, right? I mean the Raiders are desperate for a win. They gotta win. At this point, they gotta be thinking they gotta win. Denver, I think everybody's stunned that Denver's somehow 2-1. To go along with that, but yeah, obviously Diggs, right? If you're playing, what's interesting is I think running teams with Josh Allen without Diggs because they do have a couple other guys. They do have the tight end. They do have McKenzie, they do have Gabriel Davis, who's expected to play. But, it's Diggs, so you got to say much about that. It's all guys that you would stack with, right? All guys, you're just going to play them in stacks. But the value, I think, is where I do want to talk a little bit on. The value here. So we talked about Rondell. I'll talk about Rondell more first. Questionable with a hamstring. We'll have to see. And to be honest, he's been out since week 1 prep, so he might be even having to get back in shape a little bit. This is week 4 now. He's been through 3 weeks now. But he was expected to have a really big role in this offense start the season before he got hurt. We've seen Dortch kind of do it in his place, right? Because AJ Green was always going to be the other receiver. It's really Dortch was really, I think, playing Rondell Moore's role. I think now there is some room. They could put Rondell Moore into AJ Green's role. They could put Dortch into it. Either way, 3,800. Again, you're kind of seeing this kind of with the running backs is kind of allowing you to get a couple of those spend ups. Rondell Moore is just one of them. The Giants got a lot of injuries too. I know nobody wants to play that offense, but it does correlate with the Herbert play if you are doing it. Kadarius Toney out. Sterling Shepard on the IR. Leaves us with a few dudes. Literally 4 people I think that leaves us with. And there's probably just 2 that I'd be interested in anyway. This thing's going to do this like this? Come on. There's probably just 2. Richie James. Come on, man. You going to work like that? Here we go. Richie James, because he's already been a part of the squad, right? 6 and 5 targets his last 3 games. A-Dot's decent, or at least the long plays. Don't think he's got a touchdown, right? So he's got some potential touchdowns, but he'd be one of them. And then Kenny Galladay, 0 for 3. Didn't catch any of his targets, had a bad drop. He's bitched about his role. Well, this is his opportunity, right? This would be his opportunity if he wants to try and do something about it or show the Giants or even show other teams who may want to trade for him that he's got a little something. You know what I mean? So 3,900, another cheap player. I think I like Moore a little bit better, but again, the problem is the Giants it's like a depth issue. It's Darius Slayton, Davis Sills. Slayton's been in the doghouse. They've kind of used Sills a little bit. They have used him a little bit, but I think that Richie James and Galladay are just more better athletes. So I think that if they're gonna do it through the air, it's gonna be one of those 2. So those are like, the point is showing it, because with receivers it's always tough, right? For the most part, you're gonna roll with stacks and correlation and everything like that. But I think the separators this week to me seems to be those value plays that can allow you to get exposure to some of those other teams you may be looking for. And there's a few others to consider with injuries, maybe not as cheap, like Detroit. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown being out. DJ Shark, 6, 4, and 8 targets last 3 games. So obviously they brought him in for a reason. I would assume they want to use him. And then Josh Reynolds, who had 10 targets against Minnesota last week. A couple other guys to consider. So there is wide receiver value, which I think is going to allow people to spend up a quarterback in combination with those mid-tier to cheap running backs on the slate. That's the recipe right there, right? Probably something in the Chargers too, right? Guyton's on the IR. Who's playing the slot for these guys now? Is it Palmer? Palmer, I guess. 8 targets, 9 targets last 2 games. He's 5K though, so there's not really a value there anymore. But interesting play nonetheless. Decent volume play. We'll go to tight ends. Zay Jones. There you go. Okay, Nightmare. I like it. Zay, let's talk about Zay real quick. Yeah, that's a good one. 4,200. 11 targets against the Chargers. In a game they just dominated, right? Had 9 the first week. Week 2 only had 4, but they won 24-0 at home. Like they were just running the ball. It was killing clock. Playing the Eagles, you would think that Darius Slay is going to be shadowing Christian Kirk. That's what you would expect. The only thing I think you have to that could go wrong, and it's not even wrong. It's just the only thing that I think maybe he can get beat on his own team is if Marvin Jones is the one. But it just seems unlikely. And again, he got the touchdown last week. Look at the difference in yardage, though. He's not getting the yardage. Zay Jones seems to be the clear number 2 option after Kirk. Absolutely not Merrick. I think another real solid value play. But just all the more reasons that we're going to see people pay up at those positions. So getting different is going to be, you're going to do something real weird because the chalk looks pretty decent and it allows you to get those players everybody wants. So I think that it's like extra heavy. Tight end, you got Andrews, obviously. Double-digit targets, just he's trusted, man. Lamar Jackson trusts him, and for good reason. Waller, his role isn't as heavy as it was now that they got Devontae Adams, rightfully so. Kyle Pitts finally got 8 targets against Seattle. Failed to get in the end zone. Now he's playing Cleveland. He could do it. But again, Goddard, some of the guys. The guy I think benefits a lot this week, I think, is Hawkinson. And the reason I like Hawkinson is because Amon-Ra St. Brown spends a lot of his time over the middle of the field. And that's kind of what Hawkinson does on the other side. So it's already kind of a fit. Hawkinson knows. We've seen that they had a little rapport last season before guys started getting hurt and shit. But I think Hawkinson at 4,100. Now, the problem is I'm going to have a lot of Andrews. I can tell you that right now, right? Because I'm going to get a lot of exposure to that Bills-Ravens game. But the problem is, like, I like the tight ends with the stack, too. If I did a Mariota team, I'm playing Pitts. If I did a Kyler Murray team, I'm going with Ertz. If I was going Eagles, I'd probably still go with Devonta Smith, but it almost seems like it makes more sense to go with his tight end 2 Goddard or something like that with the Eagles. But if I do end up, I mean, if I'm playing golf, if I end up with a golf team, I'm definitely having Hawkinson on that team. So finding ways to work him in, at 4,100, like if I don't have a tight end from the stack I like, I'm trying to go to him. Unless I can afford Andrews, then obviously that's a different story. But I do think TJ Hawkinson's a very interesting tight end value play if you think that game does well. Now, again, these are 2 of the games with the biggest total outside the Baltimore game. Is these 2 ugly-ass games. Seattle, Detroit, Detroit's missing Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown again. And then, what's the other game? We got a lot of bad weather. Looks like a lot of rain, too. Rain in all the good games. The Cleveland-Atlanta game. That's the other game with the big total. It's wild, man. It's wild. It's a wild world. It's a wild slate. But anyway, that's kind of like what I'm thinking, right? Like it looks like we can kind of identify the chalky build. Do that with you may. Sometimes that is the right build. You just got to get different in 1 or 2 right spots, get the right stack, get the right defense, whatever. But Brown's been using Njoku, absolutely. They absolutely have. But that's what it is. My article will be up at some point. Projections should be up either tonight or tomorrow morning. The article will be out Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on when I finish it. Still waiting on some of the news and going through some of these bills to see what I end up on. But I need a strong week, man. We need a strong week this week. So we need it. Come check us out, WiseTake.com. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe. And yeah, that's it, man. Appreciate you. See you soon.